All right, this is the humerus. The head of the humerus is this large, smooth, rounded feature which is going to face medially to meet the glenoid fossa of the scapula. These two large bumps, they're very round and rough, are the tubercles of the humerus. The one that is more proximal and more lateral is the greater tubercle. The smaller one, which is more distal, is the lesser tubercle. And running between them, this groove is the intertubercular sulcus. Then the anatomical neck is, by definition, the portion just narrow to the head of the humerus. So it's up here, the anatomical neck. The surgical neck is down here around the shaft of the humerus because that's the most common place for it to break. The anatomical neck is still a pretty beefcake portion of the bone, so it doesn't break as often. And the deltoid tuberosity is this rough, irregularly shaped patch about 4 inches down from the proximal end of the humerus. It corresponds with the inferior edge of the deltoid, or the distal end of the deltoid, articulating with the bone, connecting with the bone. The rest of the terms listed in the lab manual are all at the distal end of the bone. The trochlea is the indented smooth condyle at the distal end of the humerus, while the capitulum is the more lateral, very round, like Mr. Clean's bald head feature that is also a condyle. So these two pair of smooth round features are the condyles of the humerus, but they get specific names because they look very different from each other. The coronoid fossa is on the anterior surface of the bone and just above the trochlea. The radial fossa is above the capitulum on the anterior surface of the bone. And then if I flip it around, there's a very large pit above the trochlea on the posterior surface of the bone called the olecranon fossa. The olecranon fossa, just to give an example, is going to receive the olecranon of the ulna bone when you straighten your arm. And then the coronoid fossa, as another example, is going to receive the coronoid process of the ulna when you bend your arm. And the radial fossa serves the same function for the head of the radius as you bend your arm. Then the medial epicondyle, epi means above, the medial epicondyle is above and to the outside of the trochlea, which corresponds with the direction of the head pointing medially. So this is the medial epicondyle, and then above and to the outside of the capitulum, the rough area is the lateral epicondyle. Condyles are always smooth, epicondyles are always rough, and are usually points of attachment for muscle. Then if I look at the bones of the forearm, the ulna, if you turn it sideways, has a nice U at the proximal end of the bone. The very proximal most projection on the side of that U is the olecranon, or you can call it the olecranon process. The projection on the other side of the U is the coronoid process, and again, the coronoid process corresponds with the ulna, which does not have a C in the name of the bone, so it's easier to remember that it's not the coracoid process, which was on the scapula. The indentation of the U is the trochlear notch, which is going to ride on the trochlea of the humerus as those bones articulate with each other. Then at the side of the coronoid process, on the lateral edge of the ulna is the medial bone of the forearm, so it should be on the pinky side of the forearm, and on its lateral side is the radial notch, which corresponds with where the head of the radius will articulate with the ulna as these bones articulate in your forearm. Down at the distal end of the ulna, the entire smooth surface at the distal end is the ulnar head, which looks to me like the cutest little stiletto heel you've ever seen. The heel of that stiletto is the styloid process, the pointed projection, which is the distalmost point of the bone. So when you're determining left from right, you want to make the styloid process point at the pinky, but the trick is that you can do that on both sides, and you're obviously only correct on one side. The other key is to make that radial notch face toward the lateral edge. So this is a right ulna. Then if I look at the radius, The entire proximal end, which is smooth on the outside surface and concave and smooth at the top, is the head of the radius, and it's going to ride around and pivot around on the capitulum of the humerus as it articulates with the humerus. The radial tuberosity is this large, irregularly shaped, rough bump just distal to the radial head. Then I'm going to go down to the distal end of the bone. Again, the distalmost point of the bone, this point is the styloid process of the radius. And on the opposite side, facing medially where the ulna will be when the forearm articulates, is the ulnar notch. So the ulnar notch is on the radius, but it's the point at which the radius articulates with the ulna in the forearm. The smooth concave surface at the distal end should face anteriorly, so when you lay the bone up against your forearm, that should face up, and then you want to make the styloid process point at your thumb and verify that the ulnar notch of the radius is facing medially to articulate with the ulna to determine right from left.